They wanted to jerk and RP her. I got them thrown in jail. I was a mess growing up. A total nightmare, honestly. By the time I hit 12, I was already smoking, stealing from stores, cussing out strangers, even throwing stuff at people on the street just for the thrill. I didn't care about anything, or anyone except my friends, and I use the word friends loosely now. Back then, the 5 of us ran around like we were invincible, like the rules didn't apply to us. We caused chaos every single day, and I thought that made us powerful. Looking back, I don't even blame my parents. They weren't perfect, but this was on me. I was addicted to the feeling of control, of making adults flinch, of being feared. Power became my drug, and I chased it like my life depended on it. I could fill a book with the things I did wrong, but that's not why I'm telling this story. This isn't about self-pity or redemption. It's about what happened after. I finally changed. It's about the time I found out what my friends really were, and how I made sure the world knew too. When I was 16, my parents finally snapped. I had pushed every boundary, disrespected every rule, and even lashed out at my dad. Physically. That was the last straw. No more warnings, no more second chances. They shipped me off to what they called a school for troubled youth. That name is hilarious in hindsight, because it wasn't a school. It was a boot camp in every way but name. No phones, no letters, no visitors, just walls, discipline, and hard, relentless reality. The men who ran that place, they didn't care about your excuses or how tough you thought you were. They broke me down, stripped me of every defense, every bit of false pride I'd built up. For a year, I fought them, screamed at them, got my ass handed to me more times than I can count. But eventually I cracked. And once I did, something weird happened. I started listening. And then, slowly, I started changing. There was one counselor, Jay, who hit me harder than anyone. Not physically, but mentally. He called out every lie I told myself. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He told me I wasn't cool, I wasn't feared, I wasn't powerful. I was just pathetic. I hated him at first. Then I realized he might have been the first real man I ever met. He didn't talk down to me, he just laid out the truth. And I needed that more than I knew. By the end of that year, I was no longer the same kid who got dropped off at their gates. Jay was the one who finally said I was ready to go home. And honestly, I wanted to make him proud. I wanted to prove that I wasn't a lost cause. But I had no idea that going home would test me in a way that place never could. Coming back home was weird. I was calmer, quieter, more aware of everything. I wasn't the angry kid anymore, or at least I was trying not to be. But even with that growth, I was terrified of slipping back into who I used to be. I'd spent over a year living under strict rules. And now I was re-entering regular high school, where those rules didn't exist. I didn't even know if my old friends would want anything to do with me. I hadn't spoken to them in over a year, but when I got back, 3 of them welcomed me like no time had passed. The 4th had moved to another state, but the others, F1, F2, and F3, they were still around, still hanging out, still tight. They were happy to see me. We laughed, caught up, and I let myself believe we could just pick up where we left off. I didn't spend much time with them outside of school, though. My parents weren't taking any chances. They had rules now, curfews, boundaries, and I followed every one of them because I wanted to show them I was serious. I wanted to rebuild their trust. So most of the time, my only connection to those guys was in between classes or after football practice. That part matters, because it's in those in-between moments where everything started to go wrong. I joined the football team again, mostly because the structure helped me stay focused. Plus, the 3 guys I used to roll with were already on the team. One evening after practice, we were the last ones left in the gym, sweaty, tired, and still joking around like old times. At first, the conversation was harmless. Dumb inside, jokes teasing each other. Then F1 brought up a college party they were planning to crash. Apparently something they'd been doing for a while. Booze, older girls, no rules. Sounded like the kind of thing I would have jumped at before, but now it made me uneasy. I told them I probably couldn't go. My parents wouldn't let me out that late. They started mocking me, but I didn't care. I had bigger worries. Because that's when F1 mentioned a girl. She went to our school, but I barely knew her. F1 started talking about how he'd been trying to hook up with her for a while, but she kept playing games. His words, not mine. He said he was planning to invite her to this party and finally make it happen. I tried to keep it light and asked him, "What makes you think she won't say no again?" And then he looked me straight in the eye and said it. So casually, so disgustingly. "I'm just gonna slip something in her drink. It'll loosen her up. No problem." At first, I thought it was a messed up joke. I even laughed nervously, hoping someone would say gotcha or call it dark humor, but no one laughed. F1 wasn't joking. He was dead serious. He said he was sick of her acting innocent, and that the pills would just make things easier. F2 and F3 didn't even blink. They just nodded along like this was normal. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I made up an excuse and left the gym as fast as I could. I barely remember the drive home. My mind was spinning. I spent the whole night trying to convince myself I'd misunderstood, that it was just trash talk, that no one could actually mean that. But deep down, I already knew. A few days passed. I avoided the topic. I avoided them when I could. and I tried to convince myself that maybe it really had just been a bad joke. A dark, twisted, awful joke. But F1 and the others kept talking about the party like it was the highlight of the year. They kept asking if I was coming, kept calling me a Pessy every time I said no. I let it slide. I didn't care about being mocked. I was more focused on watching for signs. Signs that maybe they'd dropped the idea. Signs that maybe I was wrong. Then it happened. Another afternoon after football practice. Locker room, again. Same group, same vibe. We were the last ones there, again, and I wish I just walked away sooner. F1 dug into his gym bag and pulled out a small plastic pouch. "Check this out," he said, tossing it to F2 like it was a snack pack. Inside were little pink pills. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. I could feel the blood drain from my face. My brain started screaming, "This is real. This is happening. This is serious." But I just stood there, frozen, while F1 started explaining exactly how he planned to invite the girl, spike her drink, and use one of the frat house bedrooms. He said it like it was a given, like it was routine, like this wasn't the most horrifying, disgusting thing a person could plan. And F2 and F3, they laughed, they nodded, they said how epic the night was going to be. I barely made it to my car before I threw up. That night, I broke down completely. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even think straight. These were boys I'd known since I was a little kid. Guys I called family. I thought I knew them. I thought we'd just grown up on different paths, not that they'd turned into monsters. And the worst part? I didn't do the right thing right away. I should have told someone. I should have gone to a teacher, a parent, the police, but I was 17. I was scared. I was ashamed. And in some twisted way, I was still clinging to the idea that these were my friends. So instead of reporting it, I tried something stupid. I went straight to F1. I told him the plan was dangerous, that it would ruin her life, and his too, that it wasn't worth it. He didn't even blink. He stepped in close and said I was weak now, that the school had turned me soft, that he and the others had been trying to wake me up again, like they could beat the kindness out of me. Then he told me something I'll never forget. "We were even gonna let you have a turn, man. Show you what you're missing." I saw red. I punched him, hard, right in the face. We fought right there in the locker room. And of course, we both got suspended. But that wasn't what I cared about. I didn't care that my parents were disappointed or that I'd gotten into trouble right after coming home. All I could think about was how someone I once called my best friend had just looked me in the eye and said he was going to drag an RIP, a girl, and thought I'd want in. That was the moment I stopped seeing them as friends. And that was the moment I decided I wasn't going to just walk away. I was going to burn their whole world down. After that suspension, I barely spoke to anyone for days. I was grounded, obviously, but I didn't even care. My parents were furious. My mom cried, my dad yelled. They didn't understand why I'd gotten into a fight so soon after coming home from that school, and I didn't explain. I just sat there in silence, letting them think I'd slipped again. But in my head, I was planning. I knew what F1 had said. I knew what they were going to do, and I knew I couldn't let it happen. I should have told my parents right then. I should have gone to the police. But I didn't. I don't have a good excuse. I was angry, ashamed, and still just a dumb teenager who thought he could handle it on his own. So instead of getting help, I started plotting revenge. First thing I did, I went back to school and found F1. His face was bruised. Mine probably didn't look much better. F2 and F3 were standing with him, and all three of them stared me down like I was the traitor. And that's when I did something that still makes my skin crawl. I apologized, told F1 he was right, that the school had messed with my head, that I hated the person I'd turned into, that I wanted to be one of them again. I even hugged him, lied right to his face, and told him I was coming to the party. And they believed me. That night, I started recording everything. Every disgusting comment, every brag about the girl, every mention of the Dartriegs. I made sure I had it all saved. Time-stamped, clear audio, undeniable. But I wasn't done. I found the girl they were planning to target. I pulled her aside and told her the truth. Everything. What they said. What they planned. That she was in danger. She was horrified, scared, furious, and she wanted to go straight to the police. I begged her not to. Not yet. I know how stupid that sounds. But at the time, I had this warped sense of justice. I didn't want to just stop them. I wanted to expose them. I wanted everyone to know exactly who they were. So I told her to pretend, to tell F1 she was going to the party, and then to stay far, far away. To my surprise, she agreed. That same day, F1 came swaggering up to me in the hallway, grinning like he'd won something. She said yes. "Told you, man, it's all going down this weekend." I didn't say anything. I just smiled and nodded, while my phone sat recording in my jacket pocket. The night of the party finally came. I was still grounded, but that didn't stop me. I snuck out like some rebellious kid again. Only this time, it wasn't for fun. I wasn't going to drink or party. I was going to make sure no one got hurt. And I was going to end this once and for all. I remember standing outside that frat house, heart pounding in my chest, trying to calm the chaos in my head. I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing. I wasn't even sure I had the guts to go through with it. But I reminded myself, this wasn't just about revenge. This was about stopping something terrible from happening. And if no one else was going to do it, then I had to. Inside, the place was packed. Loud music, drunk college kids, red cups everywhere. It was exactly the kind of scene that made predators feel invisible. I spotted F1, F2, and F3 pretty quickly. They were laughing, drinking, already well on their way to getting wasted. F1 kept checking his phone, clearly waiting for the girl. I stayed close, keeping him in my line of sight, making sure he didn't switch targets. I knew how dangerous someone like him could be once the plan started unraveling. Midnight rolled around, and the girl still hadn't shown. Exactly as planned. F1 was pissed. He started venting to the other two, complaining that she'd flaked, that she'd led him on. I watched him carefully, worried he'd try to find someone else. But by then, they were already too far gone to make any moves. All three were drunk, sloppy, slurring. That's when I made my move. I slipped away, found F1's bag, and dug through it until I found the little pouch of pink pills. And yeah, I did it. I slipped one into 3 separate beers and brought them over to my friends, smiling like I was finally in on the fun. They drank without question, still lost in the illusion that I'd come back to their world. Minutes later, they were out cold on the floor. I wasn't proud of what I did, but I won't lie. I felt a sick sense of justice. Then I pulled a black, permanent marker out of my pocket and did what needed to be done. Across each of their foreheads, in big block letters, I wrote, "Are pissed." I took photos, posted them to our school's Facebook page right there in the middle of that frat house. I knew they'd be taken down fast, but I didn't care. In a town that small, it only took a few minutes for something like that to spread. And it did. People at the party stared, took their own pictures, whispered behind hands. I didn't explain a thing. I just left. When I got home, my parents were waiting. I knew I was caught. My phone was blowing up. My face was hot with adrenaline and panic. But for once, I didn't try to lie. They tore into me at first, yelling, demanding answers, threatening to ground me for life. But then I told them everything. I played the recordings, one after another. F1 talking about slipping something into her drink. F2 and F3 laughing along. Every vile word. Every disgusting plan. I watched their faces shift from anger to disbelief, to horror. My mom cried. My dad went quiet, which was somehow scarier than yelling. Then he told me to get in the car. We went straight to the police station. I handed everything over. The recordings, the messages, even the pills I had taken from F1's bag. I confessed to what I did at the party, too. Drugging them, writing on their faces, posting the photos. My dad was furious that I hadn't come to him sooner, but he stood by me. He made it clear that what I did was reckless. But what they planned was criminal. The police didn't waste time. Once they had the audio and the name of the girl, and confirmation that she hadn't shown up thanks to me, they moved fast. The school photos had already made waves online, but now the truth was backed by evidence. And when the girl and her parents confirmed the whole thing, it was over. F1 was arrested first, then F2 and F3. All 3 of them were charged as adults for conspiracy to commit a crime. F1 got the worst of it, and rightfully so. He was the one who brought the drugs, the one who openly admitted his intentions, the one who couldn't even hide behind denial. He got actual jail time. F2 and F3 managed to avoid prison. They were labeled as accessories and sentenced to probation and community service, but in our town, that was a life sentence of its own. They were done, kicked off the football team, rejected from colleges, shunned by classmates. Even people who used to look up to them wouldn't meet their eyes anymore. They became ghosts in their own hometown. I was ready for the backlash, for retaliation, threats, a fight in the parking lot. But it never came. Maybe watching F1 go down was enough to scare them straight. Or maybe deep down, they knew they deserved it. They never came near me again. By the time I graduated, I'd put it all behind me. I moved out of town and started college. I tried to live a normal life. But I'll be honest, I still think about them sometimes. I think about who they used to be, and who I used to be, and how easily I could have gone down that same road. If my parents hadn't sent me away, would I have turned out like them? I don't know. What I do know is this. Jay, the counselor who broke me down and built me back up, called me a while back, just to check in. I told him the whole story, every detail, and when I was done, he sighed and said, "You're still an idiot for handling it like that, but I'm proud you didn't forget what we taught you." He even asked me to speak at the school one day, tell my story to the next generation of angry kids who think the world owes them something. And you know what? I think I will. Because if there's one thing I learned from all of this, it's that you don't stay silent when people cross the line, especially not people you call friends. If you see something wrong, stop it, but do it the right way. Update. I honestly didn't expect the support I got after telling this story. It blew me away. The messages, the questions, even the ones calling me out for my dumb teenage logic. I read everything I could. And since so many people had questions, I figured I'd give a few quick answers. First off, no, the girl and I never really became close after that. We talked a lot during the legal process and stayed civil. but neither of us really knew what to do with all that baggage. I think we were both just too embarrassed by the whole situation. So we kept our distance. Second, to everyone asking why I sound British, even though I live in the States. You're not wrong. My dad's British, born and raised, and his family is as classic UK as it gets. We visit often, and I was actually born there. 6 weeks early during a trip. But I grew up in the US, so I guess my writing's just a weird blend now. As for Jay, the counselor who changed my life, he's still one of the best people I know. He lost his own son to addiction years ago, which is probably why he cares so much about saving kids like me. When I told him what happened, he called me an idiot, rightfully so, but said he was proud that I didn't forget everything he'd drilled into my head. He even invited me to speak at the school next summer. Part of me wants to. If I ever make real money, that school's getting a fat donation. A lot of people asked where all this happened. I get it. Curiosity's natural, but I've got to keep that private for everyone's sake. It's a small town and I don't need this blowing back on anyone, even after all this time. Oh, and about the fourth friend, the one who moved away before I got back. I've thought about reaching out, but honestly, I don't know if I want to. I'd rather remember him as the kid I grew up with than risk finding out he ended up like the others. Maybe he changed. Maybe he didn't. I'm not ready to know. People have asked me what I would have done if I hadn't gone to that school. Truth? I don't know. I like to think I still would have stood up, but the person I was before, that version of me scares me. So I'd rather not guess. Right now, I'm in my final year of college studying aerospace engineering. Planes, jets, spacecraft, all of it. I've gotten to crawl through aircraft that have literally been in space. It's nerdy, I know, but it's my passion. I just hope I can turn it into a real career when this is all done. Thanks again to everyone who reached out, even the ones who gave me tough love. It means more than I can say.
You've heard the case. While you consider your verdict, the court calls the next case to order.
My ex took my house, my money, and my future, so I got her locked up for 37 years. For 9 long years, I scraped and saved every cent I could. $90,000. That was my nest egg. I wasn't rich, but I was careful. I worked hard, I lived simply, and I thought I was building a future with someone I loved. My ex and I had been together for years. I trusted her. I never imagined she could be the one to destroy me. But when we broke up, that trust shattered. Out of nowhere, I discovered my entire savings had vanished. Gone. I took her to court, confident the truth would come out. But the system didn't work in my favor. I didn't have solid proof, and without it, the judge ruled against me. Then came the real punch. She countersued me for emotional damages, and won. Suddenly, I owed her $55,000. I didn't just lose my savings. I lost everything. After the court ruling, my world collapsed. I couldn't afford the damages without liquidating everything I had left. So I sold my house, the home I worked so hard to buy, and to cover the rest, I took out a massive loan from the bank. Just like that, I went from financially secure to drowning in debt, all because of one woman. With nowhere else to go, I crashed at a friend's place. He didn't have much, but he gave me a roof, a couch, and something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. He also pushed me to find a better lawyer, someone who could really dig deep, and we found him. A pit bull in a suit. Within a single day, he uncovered a detail I'd completely missed. A suspicious transaction dated June 29th. It was in my name, but I wasn't even in the country then. Suddenly, we had something solid. While prepping for our next legal move, I got hit with one more gut punch. Guess who bought the house I was forced to sell? Yep, her. She used my stolen money to buy my home. I was furious. But then I remembered something she didn't know. That house had a hidden safe behind the bathroom cabinet. I never told her about it. She didn't even know it existed. And I never changed the default code 000. At that moment, I realized I had an opportunity, a dangerous one, but maybe the only way to make her pay. I called in a trusted friend, someone willing to get his hands a little dirty. We came up with a plan. He'd buy a small stash of drugs, $400 worth. Then he'd sneak into the house and hide it inside the safe. It was risky, but so was letting her get away with everything. With the drugs safely stashed in the hidden safe, the next step was getting the authorities involved, without tying it back to me. My friend made an anonymous tip, claiming he'd heard someone was storing illegal substances inside that address. The police didn't act right away. It took a week before they secured a search warrant. When the day finally came, I was a nervous wreck. I knew they wouldn't find anything unless the safe was discovered and opened. For a while, it seemed like the search would turn up nothing. 2 hours passed, still nothing. Then came the break. My friend, either by accident or brilliance, had left the cabinet slightly ajar. One officer noticed the odd gap behind it and started poking around. It didn't take long to find the safe and the drugs. That $400 stash, it was enough to carry a maximum sentence of 12 years. The drug bust was only the beginning. With her facing 12 years for possession, I finally had leverage. But I wanted real justice, not just revenge. My lawyer went full throttle. He pulled bank security footage from the date of that suspicious $90,000 transfer, and he got documentation proving I was out of the country when it happened. Then came the smoking gun. We traced the transfer directly to an account under her name. We filed a new lawsuit. This time we were seeking damages. Everything she stole, plus emotional distress. The cost of my house and double the loan I was forced to take. That totaled around $140,000. In court, her face went pale as everything unraveled. And when the verdict came down, she didn't just get 12 years for the drugs. She got hit with another 25 years for theft and perjury. 37 years in prison. I got my life back. She lost hers.
The case has been heard. The stories have been told. Now it's your turn to judge. Leave your verdict in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. The Court of Stories is always in session.